Oh, Merry Christmas. It's me, Turbo Claus, and I'm joined here by my two Scandinavian elves, Danny and Tobias.
Elves.
Well, I forgot the hat. I didn't have the memo, apparently.
Yeah, you're fired, and you got to go back to working at the
mines,
the
or-
Unity workshop, the Unity mines.
The mines. Oh yeah, because you're elf. Yeah, it's like the reverse of telling somebody get the memo about the stupid Christmas sweater, but he or she is the only one. But it's the
Oh.
reverse now. It's like you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, wouldn't it be a gift shop? Like, I need to go back to the gift shop and work there. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta work your way up to be in Santa's workshop, and yeah.
Yes.
Do you like the thumbnail that I made for the show where I have like the whole like Santa's workshop in the background and they're all working on like the old school computers?
It's perfect.
Spent a
Yes.
lot of time in ChatGPT making that one.
I can imagine.
It took me 2 prompts to get to that one. So
Oh,
Is
wow.
It is ChatGPT nowadays. That is best at that kind of thing. I remember when Midjourney was the only one, but
Yeah.
I haven't tried
I-
the ChatGPT's image generation too much actually. But
I
good.
normally use.
oh, what do you normally use?
Sure.
I think
There you go.
we're both pressed.
Yeah, we're both pressing it. Anyways, what's it called? I normally use Bing's because Bing will just pick between DALI and sometimes Midjourney.
Oh.
Or was it another? It definitely uses DALI all the time.
right. Yeah.
Is that
It's really
just like through the Bing search or whatever, or like?
I don't know. I have a Bing app, and the only reason I use that is because it is like free ChatGPT 4, which is pretty nice.
Interesting.
That's
Well, yeah. Welcome in,
And
everybody.
it searches the web. That's another nice thing about it.
As opposed to just like it going off of whatever database it was trained off of. Like it actually
exactly.
can like find relevant stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Indeed.
That's good stuff. All right. Well, yeah. Welcome in, everybody, and happy Dotsmas. I like that.
That's fun.
Yeah, we got a fun little episode of the Hot Pass Show here today. We're going to be kind of this is going to be the last episode of the year, so it's just kind of a fun little hangout episode. I got a bunch of random topics of discussion that I wanted to talk to the crew about, and then later on in the show, I got a little bit of code roasting for my Dot Survivors project, because I was just telling them that I did a major refactor of one of the systems in my game, and just kind of wanted to get their opinions on it and what they might do differently and all that. But yeah. So yeah, welcome in, you guys. How's things going? You guys are like pretty close to the North Pole, so how's things going for you guys up there?
Reindeers flying.
Yeah,
like-
we're
like
seeing
a-
Rudolph all
back
the
and
time
forth.
right now. So-
Yes.
Apparently, there's a little bit of that going on in New Jersey right now. I don't know if you guys have seen. There's kind of some weird. Yeah,
What?
have you guys heard of
what?
that at all?
No.
No.
Look it up on YouTube. There's like some like crazy like car-sized drones like flying over that like literally like every night for the past couple weeks, and no one has any idea what they are.
Okay. Interesting.
I never. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. That's
So-
big drones, huh?
Yeah. Or it could just
Maybe-
be Santa's reindeer getting ready. They're doing some little warm ups.
Could be.
Only
May-
plausible explanation, that is for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. It's just Christmas is basically just a logistics issue. So
Exactly.
just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're testing out like the Amazon drone delivery type things, but
they
yeah,
should upgrade to dots. It will be a lot faster than I think.
that'd be big time. All right. So yeah, the I guess first topic of discussion that I wanted to bring up, it's actually kind of related to some of the AI stuff we were talking about. I'm sure you guys probably saw, but Elon Musk kind of recently announced that he was going to create a game studio based off of
yeah.
XAI. So yeah, I know, Tobias, you're a big Elon Musk guy. So what was your kind of I guess initial thoughts when you saw that he was creating a game studio and they were going to be using like AI powered development, but mean, it's pretty generic. He obviously didn't give a whole lot of information on that, but yeah. What did you
I don't
think?
know. I think it's a little bit cringe. I mean, I am all for
Yes.
people going out and doing whatever they want, and if he comes back with if we make some good games happen through some investment in some studios, it's more the merrier. Okay, like it's fine. But I'm like, he he's done obviously good stuff through a lot of different industries, but like not like entertainment type things at all, what I know
Right.
about.
It's
So
been
I'm
very
like,
engineering focused and all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
he has this motto like no part is the best part engineering wise, and I assume that most of us agree that like no code is the best code as long as it does the same thing, right? So I loved removing code, and if I can make it work without it, so to speak. But to some degree it's like games are just like inherently unnecessary to begin with. So it's like it's not nothing that like, oh, we need to solve this tricky engineering problem is really important. No, it's just we just are having fun, and then like I don't know. So I think it's fun, have fun, but it's a little bit cringe at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you
It
guys
doesn't
seem to
seem
be
like an
agreeing there.
industry he would know anything about or add anything to, like other than money. He can fund
Yeah.
a game studio probably.
Exactly.
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
and I would say that like a lot of times like he come into different industries and or have like comment, and if like it sounds like he is kind of first principle thinking in a good way on a lot of things, and obviously has a lot of talented engineers around him who does the actual like hard groundwork later. But I don't think he has that same type of like first principle advantage in a gaming industry, because it's just completely different to be creative than to be efficiently making cars or rockets or tunnels or whatever. It's just I don't know. It's
Right. Yeah. I suppose like kind of the Venn diagrams of some of his other companies, like you think of maybe like Tesla and SpaceX, like there's like a pretty big overlap in kind of a lot of those areas about, engineering, manufacturing, things of that nature.
Yeah.
But as when you bring games in, it kind of like widens that. So there's not as much overlap there.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember at one of the very first game developers conferences that I attended, this would have been back in like 2015, 2016, maybe.
Mhm.
I remember SpaceX actually had a booth there, and they were basically like looking for engineers to hire, kind of in like the jobs area section. So they were basically just kind of like out there looking for programmers. And I think that was the only time that I saw them there was just kind of that one time. But
Yeah.
yeah.
They famously have a lot of previously game developers on their software teams, and they hire a lot from them on both Tesla and SpaceX. So
Yeah, I could imagine that, some people who are really high skilled developers in the games industry maybe could kind of get sick of things and wanted, more some of that kind of one of those
yeah,
higher
and
pay type jobs, where you're still kind of doing that low level engineering, but
yes,
on a completely different project.
and you also have the virtue of like doing something that's, and like we're all in the same boat here, so I can roast the whole industry in a little bit. So like doing something that like matters a little bit more in a way, maybe. I mean, I think culture games matter, but it's just different thing to like try to make
Right.
like
Yeah. There's
yeah,
cultural entertainment. There's definitely, positive
yeah.
to that.
But
But,
I could see somebody being like, no, I don't want to spend my time doing these things, and maybe have 10,000 sales on Steam, and then like nothing happens.
right.
I
Or
rather
you could be like, writing code where you're launching satellites into the
yeah,
atmosphere that connect everybody to the internet, at any remote place in the world.
I can see the appeal of developers being a little bit attracted to that, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, did you guys see this thing recently that I think Google recently revealed this kind of like AI playable type game sort of thing? Did you guys see anything on that?
No, nothing actually.
Um,
Damn, have I been
I'll
offline or something?
yeah, you guys been like busy, not paying attention to what's going on in the world or something? I know Code Monkey did a video on it, so I'll just pull up his video.
I just got a
right
shout
now.
out to the people who are saying games are culture, and if I didn't correctly
Yeah.
say it, I agree. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
But I also recognize the fact that there are some other things that are more necessary in society.
Games being culture just reminds me of the fact that at least in Denmark, we have one person who is hired by the state to go out and find all Danish games and archive them. And that is literally every single game, and he's allowed to do acquire the games even by illegal means. Which is really interesting, because he has to be able to preserve the games.
Yeah, so it's like it's something not available anymore, but it's like you can torrent it. He will just download it. Yeah,
he would be legally allowed to download it. Yeah, even though it's illegal activity, which is kind of funny. But it's because at least here it's seen as culture. So there's a whole preservation of games going on here.
Sorry to tangent, but I gotta add, we have a similar thing in Sweden apparently for YouTubers, for YouTube videos. We have like a department in Sweden that, and I assume we have the same
someone
for games,
with
maybe
a server of like every PewDiePie stream.
I was about to say,
yeah, but there's like some threshold. There's some threshold, and there's like way lower than PewDiePie. So we got hundreds of thousands of YouTube videos that is archived just because it's a Swedish channel.
Yeah, no, it's the same with the games, because like for instance, if I put a game up on itch.io, Alan, which is the guy doing this, already knows about it and puts it in the archive. Wow. So my games, for instance, always are getting directly put in.
Damn.
Which is kind of funny.
You're immortalized,
cool.
Danny.
Same goes with Nordic Game Jam. Most of those games also end up in the.
Then probably one of my games have been ended up there, even though I'm not Danish.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
So two tangents aside.
Two tangents. Break out of this loop here.
The stack needs to collapse now.
Yeah. So ripping Code Monkey's video here, but this is like a Google thing where you can basically type in a prompt and it drops you in a world, and you can actually like play through it here. You can kind of like run around, and like it's basically like he was saying that like the more you play it, the more it kind of starts falling apart.
This have you tried the Minecraft one? Because this reminds me of the Minecraft one.
Well, so
it looks way better than the
similar.
Minecraft
one of the differences between this and the Minecraft one is in the Minecraft one, if you're looking at something and then you turn around, you see whatever's behind you, and then you turn back to where you were facing originally, that would all be completely different. Like it just kind of keeps generating that. Whereas this actually has a proper memory. So if you turn around and turn back, the same thing will be in that place.
Impressive.
That's so like object persistence.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
object permanence is normally
they're 3 years old. Yay. No, it's super impressive. I don't know, maybe it's I'm just looking at this and like thinking about all the non-game developers or non-game industry people looking at this and being like, oh my god, it's so cool. And then like you gotta have like a computer, like a whole data center to run this shit.
Yeah.
I mean, what is impressive, not available to the public at all right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. What do you say?
But what's impressive here is just the fact that this is what's it called, like less footage than you would see for Minecraft. Like Minecraft, you can see that YouTube is already filled with Minecraft footage, so getting training data is extremely easy.
Yeah.
Whereas this is actually seems a little more unique. I mean, maybe it's using Google Maps or something, or a bunch of photos, but it definitely seems like it's doing more with less.
Because like I mean, one of the things that he was just showing right here is that you could basically kind of put in concept art as input, and then you could kind of like go into that scene basically. So like you can kind of maybe have someone either design some concept art, or you can have another AI model design concept art, and again put that in as input, and then now you can kind of move around in that world. So it almost kind of seems like an interesting way to prototype an environment almost, where you can kind of just like feed it in a bunch of different inputs and try things out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, prototyping.
Code Monkey said the exact same thing apparently.
Oh, I wonder where I got that thought from.
Do you not have an original thought?
No, I'm just an AI bot running off of trained data from other YouTubers.
Oh, aren't we all?
But yeah, it definitely like seems interesting that some of these things are coming along. It doesn't seem like we're anywhere close to this becoming an actual shippable game that would be interesting to play kind of thing yet. But
yeah, and it feels like, I don't know, it feels like all of these things are going through the S curve, and like the chat text version of it has like started to like greatly slow down in its delta. Maybe video has a little bit of a growing curve still left, but it feels like all of this is like growing up, and then like we need like a 100x compute power to go to the next level, or a completely different tech.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I would love to use this for some prototyping, so I'm all for it. But I also recognize like this is like I'm unsure exactly what's going to happen with this. Like when I remember when I first came across the fact that like image recognition software were like a big deal that they tried for like 20 years to even get a sense of doing anything useful with it. And I remember like, when I saw there was like on the early digital cameras, they had like the smile recognition or face recognition. Like that's a good use. But still, like all this research into image recognition, like what are we going to do with it exactly? And then like now the biggest use of it is like Snapchat filters. I'm like looking at this and I'm like, I'm
image recognition actually, I will say, does have a lot of good use cases, especially for like surveillance systems. Like if you have like some security cameras, like it could detect like a person and then maybe switch to like a high resolution recording. Capture footage of that person,
or self-driving cars, I guess, would be now.
Absolutely.
So I agree. I'm not saying I'm just I don't know. I feel like a Debbie Downer or something when I think about this, and I'm like, what are we going to do with it exactly? But I'm sure there will be a lot of interesting things. Prototyping, for example.
Concept art, like art direction, is also interesting.
Right. This definitely seems best for kind of the exploring worlds and kind of different concepts like that. But you're not going to be able to use this to like test different game mechanics, and again, this is all trained off of like existing stuff. So I was kind of thinking like if you wanted to like make some completely new and novel concept, like a game like The Witness, where something like that hadn't been created before, like you're not going to be able to get to that with that all the existing inputs. Like that's kind of has to be something kind of like bespoke, created new.
Exactly. So but I guess you could probably like take existing like images or something that is not related to gaming, and like I want to make a game out of this, and then like have the AI sort of superimpose game mechanics on and reinterpret what it mean to make a game out of this short video or out of this picture. That could be something, because then like you're bringing something from outside of gaming into gaming just to do something new with it. So that could be fun.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
I'm surprised I haven't seen this. I must have been living under a rock, I feel like.
Me too.
Yeah, I think this actually, like I saw this like literally right before we went live last week, Tobias, but I didn't like have any.
Was it the one you like? Oh, we take this next week instead.
Yeah. I didn't like have like the original like source or anything on it. I just saw like someone kind of reposted something on Twitter or something like that, and I was like, I wasn't even sure if it was real yet, because they said, "Oh, Google just announced this new thing," and I'm like, "Is that like really Google?" But yeah, like Google, just kind of recently put this out, and so seems quite interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Also, a couple other random things I wanted to talk about here is the Game Awards was on last night. I don't know if you guys saw any of it. It was kind of happening pretty late for you guys. It started probably like midnight time.
I've seen a little from Twitter. That's the only stuff I've been seeing.
Yeah. Wanted to talk about it because there is definitely one and maybe 2 ECS games that were present there.
Ooh.
Oh,
yeah.
Which one?
So one of them, of course, is Den of Wolves.
Oh, this is the 10 Chambers. Yeah.
Yeah, the 10 Chambers one. So they actually got their gameplay reveal trailer. It's pretty short as far as like what they actually showcased for the gameplay, and like it doesn't really seem like, I don't know, we can let this play a little bit as we talk here, but yeah, you know, I this is the one that I know for sure is developed with ECS, and you can kind of see what's going on here. There's kind of a little bit of heist action. You know, of course, a lot of these developers are previous Payday developers, and
I mean, you can definitely see the Payday in it.
Yeah, they'll get like backpacks on and
masks of different kinds.
Yeah,
sure.
So I mean, yeah, kind of looks like a heist type shooter.
It looks really good, I will say.
yeah. It's all HDRP, right?
Yep.
Yeah. They talked. Where did they talk about this? I don't remember. Was it on Unite? Yeah, that was.
And they did show the cool custom made with Unity logo here.
Yep.
So yeah, that's pretty much all we get out of the gameplay
God.
reveal trailer. So not a whole
that
lot.
looks cool.
Early access in 2020. What? So yeah,
at least we know it's this decade.
Yeah, it's not going to be 6 years away from now. So.
Oh man, it's just 6 years left of 2020.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't say stuff like that.
Actually, 5 years as of like 2 weeks from now. So.
Then I'm in my 30s.
Fuck you.
Yeah, welcome to the club, then.
I couldn't help it.
You know how they say like, oh, when I want to grow up, blah blah blah, and something about and you like figure it out when you sort of becoming like 22 or something, like, oh, it's just like a gradual increase of responsibility, and like it's not much more than that. Something similar being more over 30. It's like, oh yeah, it's not much.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just
you'll
older.
still be making video games, so. And then the other game that is potentially made with ECS, no confirmation on this right now. Danny, I don't know if you have any insider information.
Is it the game after Core? Yeah, that's the Core Keeper developers.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have no idea. I know the Core Keepers obviously was ECS, heavily ECS. So I have no idea. I haven't chatted with them.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Kiora. Again, like you said, the creators of Core Keeper, which I can pull that game up in a sec just to show people what that's about. But you can see this is kind of like a 2D kind of adventure game. Like it's kind of like a similar perspective to like a Terraria or something like that.
The only difference is that in that game, every pixel is like a physics thing. You can destroy every
in
pixel.
Terraria, you mean?
No, in Korara. Korara.
How
do you say that?
Kiora.
Kiora.
It's Kiora.
Yeah.
So Kiora, you're saying all the pixels are simulated in this?
Yep. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like it could potentially be a good.
You can actually see actually, I just read the description now as well, where every pixel is yours to shape, mine, build, or explode. So
there you go. So yeah, potentially could be using a little bit of ECS in here because their previous game, Core Keeper, if we go to that right here, this game is a little more of a top-down type perspective, and we do know that this one has been made with ECS. So cool stuff there.
Nice.
Tobias, have you seen this game at all?
No. Sorry. I'm just working on games, never playing them.
Yeah.
Feels sad.
This it says it came out in August, but this had been like in early access for like a couple years or something. Is that right, Danny?
Yep. Yeah. It's pretty fun,
damn.
I will say. It's because they just released their 1.0, which is why it finally says it's released now. It's really good. It's if you like that sort of game, like Stardew Valley, Terraria, it's just a good survival game. That's what that is.
Core keeper.
Also, they have like a fun gearing system where you defeat bosses, and then those bosses grant you new gear, which then makes it so you can mine further outwards, and then you can get like further and further and further out to the outskirts of it.
A little
and
gameplay loop there.
Exactly, and like defeat new bosses, getting more out. It's really fun. You can see some of those bosses right there, and I'm sure that they're gonna take that into the new other game. It's a very familiar loop because it's similar to Terraria in that way as well.
Yeah. So yeah, cool to see a couple potentially ECS games being featured at the Game Awards, which is cool. But yeah, I guess the Game Awards was a good event. Would recommend that people go at least check out some of the cool announcements and other things from there. There's some good stuff going on there. But yeah, as far as other things go, I do want to remind you all that my game, Dot Survivors, is available to wishlist on Steam right now. I'm going to try and get a build submitted for approval to Steam this weekend, hopefully. So yeah, it's getting very close to completion here. Still got a lot of work to do on the asset store project side of things. So unfortunately, probably won't be launched until early next year. But exciting little, exciting little development for you guys here. 1 second.
Yeah. Oh, something new.
Actually, I can show this real quick. If we go to here, I did share on my YouTube channel the main theme of the game. You're kind of playing around in the game. I don't know if you guys got a chance to take a listen to this one yet, but yeah.
Well, I definitely have.
I listened to it a little bit. Yeah.
I listened to the preview and now this one.
Yeah. So it's got some art this theme created by Emil at Penzilla Design, who is also the organization that created basically all the artwork for the game. So exciting stuff there. And real exciting thing here that I wanted to share is
Ooh, you got it working.
got
on
the
that
game
Steam
running
Deck.
on the deck.
Nice.
If I play this
Nice.
backwards. Which one is it? Oh, I don't want to quit.
Don't quit.
Oh,
Nice.
This is hard to play backwards. Woo! So yeah, it's been getting close here to completion, and yeah, all kinds of exciting things going on here. Let's see, a couple other announcements that I wanted to share. Code Monkey, bring him up again. Put up a big netcode for entities tutorial, getting started with netcode for entities, a little over an hour long. You just put this up a couple days ago. I haven't unfortunately got a chance to look through this here myself, but knowing Code Monkey and his tutorials typically does a very good job with them. So would recommend giving that a watch. And yeah.
he's still in white theme. It hurts my eyes every time. I have to comment every single time.
Do you actually just say, turn to dark mode? Yeah, and his Visual Studio is blindingly bright.
Yep.
Crazy. That reminds me of like Visual Studio Express 2007, the first one.
Yeah,
dark mode was only a glimmer in someone's eye by the.
Yeah, before the time that they realized that like dark mode was just like so much easier on your eyes.
Yes. Crazy. Fascinating.
And then also wanted to mention that the Unity Asset Store is hosting a 24 for 24 mega bundle for the end of the year 2024. How fun is that? There's actually a lot of really good stuff in here. So I had to pick up this asset myself. So there's upscaling for Unity, XESS. Yeah. I hadn't looked at this here, but I mean, even that's normally $30. So you're already saving money just by, if you just want that one thing. Cinti Studios has been putting out some asset packs here, or some animation asset packs that are basically fully compatible with all their characters. So this is kind of their like idle asset packs where they're just kind of like, people doing different little idle animations. So there's a bunch of animations in here. Speaking of pixel simulation type games, there's this sand game. I think a lot of people from the kind of like Flash days of playing games might recognize something like this, where you can kind of draw all these different types of elements.
That was good times.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god.
This is a classic, high school computer lab.
I loved to play it.
Yeah.
There was a particular one that I really, really loved. Can do.
Yeah. I'm sure we all played the same one there. So
yeah, I'm sure.
Good stuff there. This 3D object to UI image is a pretty cool one where there's like you can like basically have like a like if you want to kind of like display some different things in UI, you can actually have like a 3D image kind of maybe like rotating around, and it kind of like displays as like a UI icon to just kind of add a little bit more juice to your different, like if you're leveling up a weapon or something like that. Mentions you can do some stuff with mini maps as well. Danny, did you see one that was kind of catching your eye?
Yeah, the Lost Cave. I love caves.
Lost Cave.
any game with caves is a big win to me.
There you go. So yeah, hey, if you pick up this pack and make a nice stylized Lost Cave, that actually looks really nice.
Holy shit, that looks nice.
That's crazy.
So if you make a game with this, I think you got an instant buyer in Danny right there.
Yeah.
You should play Sulfur. There's a lot of caves.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
for your game.
Yeah,
that's true. Sulfur is actually the type of game that I would want to play.
Yes, it's.
Why don't you play it?
I can hook you up maybe with the code, or yeah. I don't know.
I'm a fan of Kai Losberg here. There's one of his packs in here, the restaurant bits for Unity. A lot of good stuff.
Right.
And speaking of, like, look at all these little ties to other things in the show. Terraforming Terrain 2D. So speaking of, something like the Kiora game or Terraria, where you can have 2D terrain
it looks a lot like Worms.
Yeah.
It's a Worms style.
This looks exactly like Worms Battle.
Yeah, that's nice.
So cool little pack there. Some other UI effects, and I mean, there's just it's a really good deal. There's a lot of good stuff in this one, so I would recommend checking that out. I have a link to that down in the description of this here.
24. It's almost like it's also Christmas.
Yeah, like Christmas Eve.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in Denmark, that's also the main day of the event.
Yeah,
and the entirety of Christmas is the 24th.
Yeah, and I remember you were, I think you had shared something in the Discord maybe a couple of years ago now at this point about your kind of Christmas tradition where you guys, did the old school where you're, light actual candles and have them on the tree and you guys do some crazy.
Yeah, no, we dance around the tree. It is a live tree, like a normal made out of wood tree.
made out of wood.
Well, that's not everyone that does that.
Nature made it out of wood, I heard.
Or something.
Well, a lot of fake trees exist. But then we put live candles in it with like real fire. put a star on top, and then we dance around it. And then once we're done dancing, then we can take the presents that are all wrapped underneath the tree.
That's similar to Sweden, but I think we have like skipped the dancing part, and we don't have any actual fire anymore. We have actual fire, but not in the tree. We have LED things going on.
Oh, what? No.
Lead things.
It's not fun if it doesn't have the chance of burning down your house.
Okay. Let me show you.
Very nice.
Also, when you say LED, I'm sure you meant LED.
LED.
LED makes it sound like the color that you don't want.
What?
They're talking like the metal, like the elemental
LED. Oh, yeah. I meant LEDs. Yeah.
You just casually have LED in your tree.
I don't know why I say LED instead of LED. A lot of things. I don't know.
They
why.
got like lead pipes over there too.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, no LED, LEDs. But yeah, I have a Christmas.
And
tree
also,
already.
when we dance around the tree, we also sing. That's also an important part of it.
I think
Sing,
I did that when I was a kid.
You
but
sing some like Mariah Carey Christmas songs or something like that.
Well, more like old Danish traditional Christmas songs.
Is it something similar to like? Och nu är det jul igen, och nu är det jul igen.
We do sing that one.
Påska.
Yeah. We sing that one, and we also sing another one, which is like "We Eat the Christmas Tree." It's a very weird song.
You eat the Christmas tree?
Yeah, it's a part of the song. It's weird.
Tobias, what language was that song that you were just singing?
Swedish.
And then Danny, you sing the same song or
yeah,
like
nu är det jul
variation
igen,
of
och nu är
it?
det jul igen, och julen var lite påska. Nej, det är inte sant, nej, det är inte sant, och däremellan kommer festen.
I will refrain the first hour from roasting the Danish language. In a second, and then we can go at each other.
So wait, Danny, and then the song that you were just singing, that was in Danish though.
Yeah.
But it's the same song, same like same tune,
same melody, same words. Yeah.
But it's just different languages.
Yes.
Just there. Yeah.
I mean, our cultures are very intertwined. It's we are the two countries that has been the most in wars with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we had you talked about you're allowed to like kill a Swede if they come over the ice or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you hit him with a stick, wasn't it?
Please don't hit me with a stick.
I do know one non-English Christmas song.
Okay.
Feliz Navidad.
I was actually thinking of
Feliz
exactly
Navidad.
and then it never ends. That's the joke.
Prospero año y felicidad.
I want to miss you.
And then it does go into an English part, yeah.
Yes. All right.
Okay. And of course, the Hot Pass Show, do want to remind you that you can support us on Patreon as well as through YouTube memberships. Got some fun bonuses there as far as extra videos and stuff. Just put up one a couple weeks ago talking about kind of my preliminary thoughts of some things that I want to do in the coming new year, as far as, the channel and just kind of things related to that. So yeah, do check that out if you would like to. And I guess we can get into some of other topics of discussion here. I don't really have a quick tip prepared, but I do just kind of want to show something here that I think Danny will quite appreciate, because I remember, you've told me that we should use entity command buffers as much as possible everywhere at all times. Was that right? If I'm remembering correctly.
I'm sure that's exactly what he said.
I would never say the exact opposite of that exact phrase.
So I got a little something here in my .survivors project in my destroy entity system that I do just want to have you take a look at here. If we can see what's going on here. What do you think of that? We got creating 3 entity command buffers in this one system here.
Okay, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This hurts. I mean, I see there's nothing stopping you from doing that. We don't have an analyzer going in and saying you can't do that.
It's like, Turbo, what are you doing? Stop coding at 3 a.m.
Stop drinking.
Don't drink
This is
and
something
code.
that ChatGPT might have recommended you.
Yeah,
It's,
this is what ChatGPT told me. So I think there is a little bit of method to the madness here, because there. So yeah, we have references to the different entity command buffers. So we have the end frame one, the begin frame one, as well as a local entity command buffer that kind of just runs at the end of this system here. So basically, it just kind of comes down to I wanted to kind of instantiate things at different points in the frame. So yeah, as far as the end frame entity command buffer, that one destroys the entity. Realistically, I probably could do this with the local one, but I don't remember if there's like another system that. I don't think this should be the last system that runs before that, anyways. So, yeah,
I'm
I don't
wondering
remember.
why
There
you
might be
have the
some
split
way.
to begin with.
Do I have what to begin with?
Like, why don't you just use the end frame ECB for also the local?
Yeah, I probably could at this point. So yeah, we could probably at least combine the end frame and the local into one. I usually just start with the local because it's way easier to type out new entity command buffer world update allocator than this whole system API get singleton end simulation entity command buffer system dot singleton dot create
It
command
rolls
buffer
right
world
out of the tongue,
unmanaged.
doesn't it? It's
Need more words.
yeah.
And then as far as the begin frame one goes, this is when I want to instantiate another entity. I want it to instantiate at the beginning of the next frame, because otherwise you get that weird one frame glitch where it appears at the origin for one frame and then shoots over to the position that it's supposed to be in. You guys know what I'm talking about on that one?
Yeah, I used to just write directly to local to world to fix that.
Yeah, you could do that too.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think that's one of those things that is because you don't want to, be all willy-nilly about ordering stuff in a too protective way, and you want to still have the the freeway open for the data properly and just do everything once in the exact order need. Then that becomes a little quirk. And the only way I figured how to make the code not super ugly was to just set local to world at the same time. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
I guess just an extra thing that you have to do, because in that case you would have to do set the local transform as well as set the local to world. But
yeah,
I mean, if you already have the position, it's just one other line of code that sets some data on there.
So, but sorry, I was a little bit distracted. I realized. Did you fix it somehow in some other way, or am I thinking?
What do you mean?
Well, did you fix that problem?
Instead, I'm just instantiating the entity in the begin frame entity command buffer, so it just spawns at the beginning of the next frame,
and therefore
which is before the transform system group. So then that updates.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Local to world.
Well, that's
I know quite a few different games that do it that way. Make sure to spawn only at the beginning of a frame so that everything picks it up. So it's rendered correctly at the end of the frame.
Right. Yeah. Because I suppose if there's any other initialization systems that I want to run, for any of these entities that I might be instantiating through here, obviously those wouldn't get picked up until the next frame, where could potentially already be rendered inside the.
And theoretically speaking, you should be using the begin initialization system in command. There's a system for beginning of initialization,
right,
which is run before.
And that's just to run more at the beginning, before all the initialization.
Yeah. It basically just means that where you should put most of your initialize the player singleton with all the children prefabs or whatever else you might need. All that initialization should ideally happen in the initialization system group. And what you want is for your entities to spawn at the beginning of the frame before that group. So that would be in the begin initialization system group.
That makes sense. I do have a couple of things within that system. the initialization system group, we can kind of take a look at what I have here. So yeah, I do have kind of like updating some global time stuff. That's mostly for the animations. And then yeah, I have some character initialization, initialize camera. Yeah, so I probably should do that at the beginning of the initialization system. So yeah, probably condense the local and then frame down into one, and then for the begin, use the begin initialization there. So yeah.
Just a general thought here. Like I remember early, just like a year or so into my career at Stunlock, all the games made at Stunlock have, you know, this problem of like the order of stuff as is really important, and it's like it's important in all games, but in that game it was very important. You know, like oh, you're taking damage and you have like resistance.
For which game? Sorry.
Battle Right and the Dylan Epidemic. So you have like you know, taking damage. You have like resistance, armor, reflect, and some health. You have like a billion different interacting nuances and like ordering of those, and like what comes first and how to work it. So all of that. I remember hearing like, oh, one of the deepest, biggest problem in game development is ordering stuff properly. And I was like kind of taken back, like, how hard can it be? And like, but here, like, yeah, it's like actually like one of the core issues. Like, how do you deal with ordering stuff in a good way to make it sure that it works? So yeah, I think, and I think actually that the way better with the system version of it than scriptable execution order in traditional Unity.
Right, where you basically just have to go into some random obscure menu and like set like priority values and
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's a little bit more explicit, where you say, let this be part of this group and have it go before this system and yada yada yada. So I definitely have.
I mean, there was once a whole Twitter thread on like the way that I structure my code in my game is just I have one mono behavior, and that mono behavior calls out everything else. Because that means that you can actually see the execution flow, because the execution flow is what is in that game object, right?
Yeah.
And and that to me is totally brilliant, because it's way easier. You can actually see the execution order.
Straight up procedural stuff. Yeah.
I think the issue is fundamentally that like you could, you know, print out like explicit order of all the different mono behavior update loops in script execution order, and have them like in an UI at least like shown in the order. But it's like it's just fundamentally not information that is easily used, because there's too many of them, since the whole concept of object oriented things gets out of hand with objects.
But also just the fact that like what put them there in the first place is what becomes really hard. Like, how do I actually then go to move a certain
but
thing?
I mean, like in execution order, you can just move it, like drag it, right?
Yes,
or what do you mean?
No, that's correct. But like that's the problem I'm talking about with systems. Like with systems, you do have the problem of like, why did the system end up here in the first place?
You mean like the initial assignment of it, right? Because that's
exactly.
It's
but also as you begin having more and more update after and before stuff.
Yeah,
more
that's actually like, maybe Danny, maybe you have some like this is a weird thing that we're talking about internally. Sometimes we ask you about stuff and like, that's a philosophy discussion internally for us. Like for me, there's two things that I'm missing with the update before after in group thing, and it's like I would like to be able to have two update before, not because I know that you fundamentally only need one. Like I'm going to be after this specific system, but I like to have two, so I can like,
I think you can do that.
Can I?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Danny?
You just have to use two attributes, right?
What?
Can I put two update before on a single system?
Oh yeah. You can say update after this one.
Have it always been like that?
Oh yeah.
Because
I think what you might not be able to do is like update before system, system. I haven't tried that, but
but you can have 2 attributes.
you can have 2 separate attributes.
So
You can't have 2 update in groups though.
No, that doesn't make sense, obviously. But okay, so you know when you have like this thought, like that was something that like screwed me over
and
3 years
another
ago.
important thing is obviously that if you are in a group, you can only order depending on what is inside of that group.
But I now obviously like I'm like, why didn't I just put it in and try again? Because like I consciously remember thinking like,
and by the way, if it's not a thing, if you go ahead and try it and it's not a thing, I can put it in.
Yes. Okay, I will gonna make sure, because the only reason, I'm sure you agree, both of you, that like the only reason I want to do is like I just like, it's like conceptually it's behind this that matters, but if it's behind this, if it's not behind this, then a lot of other things just screws up.
Right.
But like,
and it's like, what if like you're kind of relying on that almost like cascading update befores, and then you remove a system in the middle that breaks things.
That, and then I would like to have like, I don't know how it would, I honestly don't know how this would logically work, but it would be so nice to have like some index-based alternative. So like set like 5, and that has like, so you can have like a few very very intricate gameplay system where you just have like an enum somewhere that you like specify the order of them, and then you put the enum in.
At that point, why are you not using like either a system group and then updating it from within that, or just like
fair
manual creation and then have a system that updates all of them in order?
Yes.
Because then
it was just, I wish I know.
No.
Daniel's just like, Tobias, stop being lazy.
I like being lazy.
Me, at least, it's much more clear if you have a system that just in its own update has now this update, now this system.
To be clear, I have gigantic systems with like 1 billion jobs after each other, so I get you 100%. For some reason, there's a few times where I'm like, I just wanted to put these like in order like this, the systems, and then you're right. It's kind of irrelevant. It's much better to focus on actual issues than just me being lazy. So, I will try the double before after and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, I will write to you, and then
good.
I will be very happy if you put it in.
It definitely sounds like an easy thing to implement if it isn't there.
I
know exactly where to do it.
Well, I guess you could have like a situation where they sort of contradict each other in a weird way, like double contradict, but something, I don't know. But anyway,
we already do that resolution for if you have one update after and one update before, and they say something that is conflicting because you're saying to update after something that is happened before.
Yeah.
What did you say, Johnny?
I just say you get a little warning in the console if you try and do something like that.
I like every few months on Just Read Instruction, I was just like, okay, let's just deal with all these warnings about ordering things and let's just go through them.
Ignore invalid attribute or whatever.
I
had kind of gone through a little bit of that myself, just as I'm kind of getting things ready for the, getting the code all solid and final. It's just kind of grouping things together in a bunch of system groups. So like you're saying, having good update order is important. So you can see that, I have my .survivors translation system. So this is where, any of the movement code happens, and, have other kind of like rotational things where, the entity will just kind of like rotate. It's kind of good for some of the, like attack effects and things like that. And of course I want that to all update before the transform system group. So we have this attack system group, which needs to update before the interaction system. And then we have like some late system groups here, stuff of that. So just kind of went through that whole process. And I think one thing I kind of noticed is, they say the update order is like initially assigned kind of arbitrarily, but it's deterministic. So like every time, you hit play, the systems will be in that same order. Even though it's kind of like arbitrarily assigned to begin with. But I think one thing I noticed is as I started like adding in a bunch of these, update before and after, is like some other unrelated systems were now getting assigned to like different parts in the frame. Like, is that something that happens, or am I crazy and was misinterpreting what was happening.
I think that was a question for you.
Danny,
Danny,
do you know?
I didn't listen enough.
I was just sorry. I was just changing around like the update order of like some systems, and then I noticed like some other systems that I hadn't touched yet, like their order was getting changed throughout the frame as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean I think the thing about the system order is that it's deterministic. Even if you don't have anything specified, it just happens to be like deterministic for the set of systems that you have. It doesn't actually guarantee that they will always keep being, in a certain order.
All right. Yeah. So if you
the
add
only thing that
something-
actually guarantees it is when you put an attribute
explicitly, stating it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh, I missed that frame.
ECS, come back to me.
Oh, there's so many things annoying when you work with mono behaviors.
Oh yeah. No, and
I'm happy that I cannot relate. So.
Yeah, I mean,
I like working on a nice game, but I hate working in the code.
Yeah, Sulfur looks really nice.
Yes.
Looks like a fun game for sure. But yes. No, it's we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of giant refactor that I did the other day, but it was just really nice, being in the ECS land, and I was able to this is like kind of a core system to the game, and I just completely rewrote, the system and all the associated data, and I think there were something like 40 scripts that I needed to go fix things in afterwards.
Oh wow, big refactor, huh?
Yeah, but it actually was pretty easy because again, it's just kind of data in, data out, and I was just able to go to all the things and just do those simple little modifications that I needed, and of course clean up a couple little bugs after I hit play for the first time, but it worked pretty well for the most part, and I was super happy with that. So yeah.
Did you have you clean your room feeling afterwards?
Oh yeah, big time.
Nice.
Yeah, got rid of a lot of code in that one, and it was all good. Nice. But yeah, so we'll talk about that in a sec. But Danny, I saw something crazy that you posted on Twitter here the other day.
What did I post?
What have I missed?
What did I post?
You had replied to this Ginger Bill tweet here about stop it. You don't need ECS.
Yes.
So a quick reminder, if you are asking how to do ECS, it's not for you. Make games, not engines. If you just make an engine, it might be fun, even teach you a lot of things, but it won't actually teach you how to make an engine for an actual game. And Danny, you replied, ECS is great if you work with big, uncoordinated teams. Any other time, it is mostly just for show than anything practical. Danny, what do you mean by this? Defend yourself.
It's kind of ironic, right? Making a big ECS and then saying the statement.
You're throwing your project under the bus.
I think the thing about it is if you're like a small indie, then like an ECS is probably not necessary because it's way easier and cleaner to just know your code by just like writing it out and like having your system not be a system at all, just a function, just one function calls another function, and like having everything just written out nicely and neatly. It's a lot simpler. The same goes for all my enemies in my game. Well, I'm just going to create one big enemy array. A lot of the time, you don't need that many things. However, the reason that an ECS is important, especially for a bigger production, is because of all the uncoordinatedness that comes from working with others. Because as soon as you start working with others, say you need rendering, for instance, for the same things that are moving around on the screen, well, all of a sudden you have to communicate between the people making the rendering work on your entities, as well as the actual gameplay mechanics of it. And so it almost at that point you do need some sort of communication protocol in between, and that communication protocol is ECS for a bigger production, even if it's just 9 people. But if it's a solo game, then it's just for show.
I actually According to solo projects is madness.
Yeah, I was thinking. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
yes, yes,
Simon's
Simon.
working
Yes,
on
you
an
you
ECS
are
game.
doing
I'm
madness
working
right
on an
now.
ECS game. Tobias has shipped an ECS game.
So,
Are you
okay,
calling us all big uncoordinated teams here?
Okay, so I should also I should also specify that it counts as being in part of a big uncoordinated team when you're working in an engine, like because what you're essentially doing is you're working with Unity here, which is a bigger team. So
Right.
so you're
I guess
using.
you're saying this in the more like general game development sense. Like if you're
Exactly.
like literally just making a game, regardless of using Unity or not.
Yes, exactly. So like when you're working on like a solo project that is in Unity that is using entities, that's perfectly fine, because the reason that you're using it to begin with is because you're expecting like graphics to already be written for you, physics to already be written for you, or some other system that we have written for you, right? But if you then like say you wanted to go completely solo and work on your own project and make your own game engine, which is crazy enough to begin with, then I wouldn't start making an ECS. Then like if you if you already decided on working on your own engine or using like a smaller framework than Unity, then what you should be doing isn't writing an entity component system. What you should be doing is you should be trying to get the core fundamentals of your game working.
Yeah, 100%. I had this discussion. We have a guy who I think he's intern technically, working on software. He's not that experienced of a programmer, but he seems to be very like asking and wanting to learn. And he asked me, and I'm like, ooh. Somebody who haven't programmed for more than a few years asking me about what's wrong with the mono behaviors and how the way software is coded, like this the fundamental like structure of it, not software itself, and we went down this rabbit hole about object oriented versus not object oriented, and it's hard to explain if you don't have a lot of experience with, if you want to actually tell him something that is like useful to know as a programmer. If you only program for like 2-3 years, then it's kind of tricky to explain like why is objects not a good idea for code,
right. And especially if like the way that most people unfortunately learn programming these days is not from like a bottom up, like here's literally how your computer processes
exactly
instructions, and here's how it stores memory in the RAM.
I gave him some quick example of like, oh, here we have like a loop, and I'm like, I've optimized it by squeezing it down one step by not using an individual update loop per object, but having like a manager doing the updates on all the core objects, whatever. But that was not the point. The point was explaining that was tricky, and then like he started asking like, what do you do instead? And then like he, I wasn't going to, like, oh, you should just, drop everything and go and invest in dots or ECS. And like, that's not really that helpful. It's just like, you need to, what do you do if you don't have ECS or mono or objects? And I'm like, you just type the code that does the thing, I think.
Yeah.
Like what? Like,
well, you don't need a game object to have a position. A position is just a float free. What do you mean?
You're like,
and then you change the float free. That's all. That's what that is.
Yes. How do you make an update? How do you make it, communicate? I'm like, you just, write some structs and you shove them everywhere. Like, you just write, and it's just so, I don't know. It's like fascinating.
I feel like that's what happens if you haven't written any code outside of Unity or Unreal or like a game engine setting, because
exactly
when you have to just do normal C#, then you will know that you need to create data manually. There's no way of going around.
So it's been like kind of a fun exercise to like mess around with Odin a little bit, because it's like it's everything is on me at this point, and it's like I got to create everything. So it's a fun exercise for sure.
Actually, on the Odin note, by the way, since we also have Gingerbill here, do you guys know that there's going to be like a Better Software Conference? I think it's called
Better Software. That's very...
Better Software Conference. So Casey Muratori and Ginger Bill and some of the other like data-oriented guys are gonna do a conference called the Better Software Conference in Sweden.
Yeah, I saw
in
this.
Sweden.
Yeah.
I am so gonna go. Like once they finally
It's like in the
announced
summer, right?
day and
Or they haven't said
location,
specifically, right?
they haven't said specifically. Like they I think it's just planned for 2025. But it's gonna be in Sweden. I'm just
There's gotta
excited
be
to see where.
some dude in that group that is from Sweden, and I'm not sure who.
Yeah,
Who is like a big data-oriented guy or whatever. I don't know.
You can try looking at the, like, search it up.
The only person I remember being obviously Swedish that is like one of the henchmen of that may be kind of sad for him to hear, and that I said that, but no, well, he won't never. Irrelevant. One of the guys who came with Mike Acton, could it be Anderson or something? He was like on the Burst team for a while. Danny, do you know who I mean?
Neil
Fredrik Andersson. Fredrik Andersson or something, maybe.
and Andreas Fredriksson.
Andreas Fredriksson. Oh, yeah, maybe that was the thing. Unity Burst.
So here's the Better Software Conference, by the way.
Yeah, that's the one.
So
it's going to be in the summer in Sweden.
So of course, Ryan Fleury, he's working on the RAD debugger. This guy whose name I don't even know how to say. Yeah, he's working on the kind of a better version of the Windows File Explorer. I was looking up some of these guys. I think Ted, I want to say he's making like kind of his own operating system, even again off of these better software principles. Of course, Casey Muratori, Mr. Bill Hall, Ginger Bill.
None of these people are from Sweden. What?
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Well, I appreciate it. I will. Yes.
Is this guy? Is that a Swedish last name?
That sounds
have a kebab together.
Yeah, Tobias, we should definitely both go. Like.
Yes. If it's in Skövde, I will shit my pants.
I'm surprised you didn't know about this one.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to. I just found the talk from that guy. I just wanted to know what his name was. If you, yeah, I can check that out while we.
I believe Ginger Bill's name isn't Ginger Bill.
I know. I was so thrown off when I saw Bill Hall.
False marketing, for sure.
I mean, at least he has Bill in the name, right?
Right.
Yeah. True. Well, and he is ginger, so I guess he get a pass.
He is a Ginger Bill.
Indeed. Saw this one comment I wanted to bring up in relation to using ECS on, big uncoordinated teams, as you say, Danny. So he says only the programmers need to know about ECS, correct? So yeah, basically, what I would say to this is like the programmer is the person writing all the ECS architecture, but at least from what I can tell, the purpose of ECS having the multiple kind of separate components makes it easier for non-programmers to interface with that. So you as a programmer, you can create for the purpose of, like, say, Unity ECS, you can create authoring components which all the designers and level editors, whatever, they all can interface with those things. And again, just kind of whatever they interface with, you can handle all that data how you need to on the programming side. So again, you don't have to have that tight coordination. But go ahead, Danny.
I would actually say that it's more so that the level designers, etc., they don't need to know about ECS or what even ECS means. What they need to know about is whatever the compositional model is of that game framework they're using. So whether that is game objects with components or it's entities with components, it's maybe just a XML file that lays out an object in their game, because that's whatever the unique game engine is using. I think that's something like World of Warcraft is doing something like that with Lua. Like whatever the object compositional model is that engine is using, that is what they need to know about, because that's what they are going to use to put in objects in the game and like make up behaviors from that.
Yeah.
They don't actually need to know what an entity component system is.
Yeah.
Right.
They just need to know, hey, I can put in an object and I could put these things on it.
Yeah, I worked on both sides. I made the level editor for my first game in a project. We were, I think, 12 people, and it was based on like a DirectX thing I made. And the bottleneck was asking me how to do stuff. And that's maybe get alleviated a little bit if you have something like a big corporation with a bunch of documenting programmers like Unity making the documentation, so the programmers who are making everything doesn't need to be the bottleneck for all the documentation and how everything works. So yeah, I just to answer this guy, I used to be part of a studio called Stanlock Studios, but now I have my own studio in Sweden. So used to be.
Yeah.
But...
And you also work with the Solver people.
Oh yeah, now I work with Perfect Random, they called. And I worked on Raft. Whew. Oh no, okay. Enough of my
there you go.
self-promotion.
And I'm
That's
not.
TV.
And I'm not, yeah. And I know all the I know the coolest people.
Oh yeah, another game awards show related thing. Do you know that guy? What can I think of his name right now? Joseph Fares. He's like the head of Hazelight Studios.
Yes.
I didn't realize until they said something last night at the Game Awards that they're based out of Sweden.
Yeah. And Fares is like a legendary dude. He's like the most hype person ever.
Yeah, very charismatic.
He's the most un-Swedish Swede ever.
I
love him. I have
I don't think I know who this is.
Are you looking up him right now?
Yeah. How do you spell his name?
Joseph Fares. It's Josef here. Joseph Fares.
And I think he has a brother who's called Fares too. Yeah. Continue.
Yeah. His I think kind of their most popular game has been one called It Takes Two. The studio does a bunch of the co-op type games. So yeah, they have It Takes Two.
I'm gonna play It Takes Two on Sunday, so that's funny.
Nice. I hear it's super good. It won Game of the Year a couple years ago. So they always have him doing stuff at the Game Awards because he always says funny things.
And Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. I've also played that game. Brothers,
yeah.
They make good stuff. Two of my
how was Battlefront 2? Interesting.
Yeah, two friends from university works there. One of them is like
I was gonna ask if you knew anyone at the studio.
Yeah, I know more than that, but I just two people who was in my year at the university. One of them I think is like a art director or like animation director or something at that place now. So Hazelight exactly studios is.
I was trying to see. Do you know how big the company is?
I would guess they're like, I was gonna say above 50, but below 100. Yeah, they're pretty tight. Because they're making like halfway, more or less AAA at this point. Like the Prison Break game, it's like It Takes Two, I think.
A Way Out was the Prison
Break. A Way
game.
Out, yeah. That clearly looks AAA when you look at it. So.
Yeah.
I mean, It Takes Two is also the size of game that sort of looks that way. Like it looks like a Microsoft.
That's true. That's true. Actually.
Bigger than a AA. Yeah.
Yeah, they're AAA. Yeah, I give them that wholeheartedly.
It's the same with what's it called, 10 Chambers. 10 Chambers has definitely outgrown their indie size. It's not an indie studio.
Yeah, they're around 100 people now, right?
They're around 100 people. Last I looked.
Yeah. Damn. Huh.
So and then they just recently, this Hazelight, they just announced their game at the Game Awards last night. This Split Fiction, which, as you can imagine, is another 2-player co-op type game. So Shout out Joseph Fares.
Nice.
Okay. What do we got here?
I think I don't remember if it's him or his brother who made a bunch of movies also in Sweden. I think it's his brother. I should look that up.
Let's see if we go to him. Yeah, he has a relative brother. Fares.
Nice.
Yeah,
exactly. That's the dude who made a bunch of movies, I think. Yalla Yalla. Oh, that's yeah. This These are like cultural iconic movies in Sweden. Super fun.
Zero Dark 30. It's a nice Swedish movie. You know that one?
Well, yeah, I know
not
that
a
one.
Swedish movie.
I suppose he was probably more or less a producer, something like that. But Yalla Yalla, I think
he's known as for his performances in Zero Dark 30. So maybe he was.
Oh, he was actually an actor.
So Zero Dark 30. Yeah, it looks like he was just an actor in here.
I didn't realize that. Maybe he's always been the actor, and his brother is the director.
Swedish actor, producer, and director.
Oh, yeah.
Does it all. Jack of all trades.
Cool dude. Multi-talented.
How does one end up with the same first name as last name?
Ask his dad, I suppose.
Fares.
Should I legally change my name to Turbo?
Yes.
Nanny.
Turbo, Ultra.
It's either that or Turbo, and then your last name should be Pascal. So.
Turbo.
Or just a single Turbo. You know, kind of like a McLovin type deal.
Or Zendaya.
Zendaya. Is she that really her only name?
That's the only name you can find on Wikipedia. Yeah.
All right.
I did not know that.
It's kind of fun because people have been asking if Tom Holland and Zendaya were to be married, would it either end up would Tom either be now called Tom or would
Tom
he be Zendaya Holland?
It's just Tom.
Oh yeah. I take my wife's last name. Nothing.
There we go. Ginger Bill being Ginger,
Yes.
or even better, Bill.
Bill, yes.
It's almost like that Chinese company, Billy.
Oh, is that a Chinese company?
I think they're Chinese,
yeah,
right?
it is. Now I remember. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I guess we can maybe do a little Christmas roasting, a little Christmas code roasting here, right? What do we think of that, huh?
Yeah.
That sounds excellent. I was going to say something completely different, like pigs and roasting, but that was a little bit too.
Well, you said it anyway, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. We roast code here, not pigs.
Exactly. All right, so this big system that I did a refactor on is my whole kind of like stat modification system. And yeah, Tobias, I'm kind of curious about, because in your game, just read the instructions. I'm sure you probably did some type of stat modification type thing, where maybe you pick up a power up and you kind of have some like temporary like damage boost or something like that. Do you have something like kind of like that in your game for some things?
Yes, but it's it's way less complicated than having a stats. I could have needed it if I would do a little bit more thing, but mine is literally just like I have a byte set that like toggles flags on depending on what power up I have, and then I have just a function that I just ask like what's my movement speed, and it just returns one of two values depending if the flag is set or not.
Okay.
So it's not a stat system. It's like just like a property toggle.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't have to make a stats game. I've already Batterite had like the most complicated shit ever for because.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I mean, after I go through this, I'd be curious to kind of get your take on my approach here. And
sure. Yeah, of course.
So yeah, basically, I guess the goal of the stat modification system, this of course is for my Dot Survivors project here. Or of course, you know, the player can kind of like upgrade different power-ups that can affect some of their stats, and they can also pick up like temporary boosts on stats there. So yeah, really just the main goal is to provide modifications to the player and enemy stats that impact gameplay behavior. So like move speed, attack damage, attack cooldown, projectiles. So I have 12 of these total in this current game. So it does have kind of some interesting requirements, which makes it a little bit complex here. So the stat modifications can have kind of like different durations, like a permanent one where maybe the player starts with a certain stat modification, like depending on what character they select, or when they upgrade a specific item, like they have like a passive ability, that's going to last with them for the duration of the game after they get that ability. But then also we want to have temporary stat modifications. So, maybe you pick up some power up and it's kind of like based off of some timer. And, once that timer expires, then it goes back to, that portion of the stat modifier is now kind of like eliminated. Or maybe there's some other conditions met that, it's like, after you kill 20 enemies, then, you lose this power up kind of thing. So there's permanent and temporary power ups. And also, of course, the stat modifications can stack on top of each other. So if you have like a permanent 10% attack damage increase and a temporary 10% attack damage increase, you'll have an effective output of a 20% increase. And then, once that temporary one expires, then you'll just go back to having, just that 10% increase. Of course, we want to, clamp the values so they're within some, specific range, so we don't get some like weird game-breaking behavior or anything like that. And then we'll also have like different types of stat modifications. So there's like an absolute integer where, it's like your hit points is increased by 20 points, or like an increasing integer where you kind of like additional attacks, where you can like say add 2, an increasing decimal, where it's like, this is 0.2 rather than 2, and a percentage base, so it's like, we increase it by 20%. So kind of different ways of kind of like applying these different like stat modifications here. So here's kind of the solution that I came up with. Basically, so each character has a big current stats component. So there's 12 integer and float fields that has like all these different stat modifications. And now basically each character has one of these components. So like, all the players, all the enemies, they all have these. And they also have a dynamic buffer that references data-only entities. This dynamic buffer, I have it set to a chunk capacity of 0, so we don't like, fill up the chunk size, because the characters already have like a bunch of data associated with them. So I don't want to like fill up those chunks too much. And then these kind of like data-only entities kind of in this dynamic buffer, the character has a dynamic buffer of all these data-only entities. Each of these data-only entities has its own dynamic buffer that has like these like stat modifier elements on it. And this stat modifier element, this is just an enum of the type of modification that it is and the actual value of the modification. And I'm just storing this as a float right now. And again, for all the integers, we can just kind of cast it to an integer. So basically kind of the flow of things is like, when a new stat modifier is required, we're going to go ahead and create a new stat modifier entity and then populate its dynamic buffer with all of the stat modifications. The purpose of this is to, if you say pick up an item, you can increase multiple stats. So maybe it increases your attack damage as well as your move speed. So it's kind of stored on a dynamic buffer for that reason. Once we create that entity with the populated dynamic buffer, we'll add that to the player's reference buffer. And then on the player, we'll enable a recalculate stats flag. And then inside this like recalculate stats system, we have a 2-dimensional array that basically says, okay, for this character, we need to recalculate the stats on it, loop through all of the stat modifier entities, and on each of the stat modifier entities, we'll go through all the stat modifications. And we basically just accumulate all that and then store that now in that current stat components that every character has. And then basically same thing when a stat modifier gets destroyed, like a temporary one, then we just set that recalculate stats flag, recalculate all the stats again, just so we kind of like get that new baseline, and then reapply those to the current stats for the player or the character. And then now in any system where I need to check the modifications, we can just look at that current stats component and apply the multiplications, additions, whatever that might be required for that specific stat. So that was kind of a little bit of a ramble, but were you guys able to kind of follow along? I said, Tobias, you're looking a little confused at sometimes, but
there was I think I got most of it. There's a few. Do you want me to just jump in and have some comment
let's
on
go
it?
for it. Yeah.
So the two-dimensional array, I get that like the columns are the different stats, but the rows would be the different modification values then applied in different ways depending on what type of modification it or what.
So yeah, I think this is probably the most confusing part of this, how things laid out. But yeah, so the character, basically they have a dynamic buffer of individual entities that again are these data only entities. Each of those entities has its own dynamic buffer of the individual stat modifications.
So it's not an actual 2D array. It's just that it.
I'm basically it's not a 2D array. I'm just iterating it like in a two-dimensional fashion.
It's a nested loop basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the thing that confused me was like if it was an actual 2D array, then it's like then you need to have the same amount of rows on all the columns, and that like
right. Yeah. No, it's not a 2D array in that sense. Yeah.
So I guess there's a question to be asked that's only gameplay and testing can like actually answer, and it's probably not that relevant at all. But you could have like a sparse, lazy loading of this, like you only recalculate these when you need them, or you have like every frame you crunch all of them that's dirty or modified flags that's modified. I guess that's something depending on how complex, but yeah, it's probably not that many, not several tens of thousands of stats we're talking about, so recalculating them as soon as they're dirty is probably just fine.
And again, this recalculation only happens like for the enemies. It doesn't really happen because the enemies aren't like I guess so. It happens for the enemies when they're first spawned, so it can kind of like calculate some maybe initial stat modifications that they spawn with. Like so for example, I don't have this implemented right now, but you could say maybe like enter a mode in the game where the enemies all have like double health or something. So then it would kind of like apply that as a stat modifier at the beginning, and then it kind of like recalculates like after they kind of initially get spawned. And then so for the player, this recalculation, it only happens when maybe they pick up an item that gives them a temporary boost, or they level up one of their passive upgrades.
And then I would just say that it sounds like it's maybe slightly overdoing it with how modular, because you're like this is another entity that links to like an entity with its own dynamic buffer and its own, like it becomes like a very like modular linked situation, where part of it, and like obviously this is hard to know without actually coding it all the way through sort of, but maybe behemoth struct or some fixed lists could solve similar things. Otherwise it's not that much different than what I would sort of imagine.
So I'll tell you the reason that I chose to have those kind of like entities that hold their own stat modifications. It's mostly for the like temporary modifications, because now I can just say add to that entity a component which I already have for a bunch of other things in my game, which is like the destroy after 10 seconds component.
Okay.
I can have like a destroy
Right.
after time type thing, and I can
So
just add that to the data only entity, and that automatically, manages its own life cycle. Once that gets destroyed, then it has, in my big destroy entity system, it has a way to reference the character and set that recalculate stats flag on it.
okay.
So
So
it kind of manages itself, but then like also has the ability to, clean itself up and then set that recalculate stats flag on the player.
yeah, but I think that brings it back to like all of that is like it's possible to code without having the ECS managing this stuff. But in a lot of cases, I think it's the right choice to do that way, to have it's. I think the term you technically use for this is like it's like a slightly normalized database, because you like it's a you only have the data you need. You don't have like a bunch of free memory that's just waiting to be used. You just have the data, and then you link on the things you want, and you remove
Right,
them when you
right.
don't need them, and it becomes a little bit more sparse in its nature while
Yeah.
being more flexible. And yeah, I
So yeah,
that's
kind of,
the,
I guess using like maybe the non-entities approach, like again, it would be kind of like an array with a bunch of different fields, and then maybe I could have like a, expiration timestamp field
yeah, yeah.
as one of those
Or
elements.
like a frame. This is like this frame. This thing is relevant only this frame, and when it moves
Right.
forward,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
there's other ways to keep track of it. But that's just like to just like mention the alternative that pops into my head.
Right.
And
So yeah,
some of that I sort of needed to do in just read instructions, because the sheer amount of crawlers, we like I could have made it in a slightly more normalized, detached, linked way with sparse data, but it was just better to have it very, very packed in together, and not link out into other chunks with it, which your solution sort of requires
right.
and
Right.
benefits from also. Yeah. So, but that's just that's a thought that I had. That's a decision that one has to make, if you at least if you know the both of the strategies. And I think it's just depending on the game you're making.
Right. No, that makes sense. Danny, I see you kind of nodding along with a lot of what Tobias was saying on there.
Yeah, I think didn't we partially also talk about this like 2 or 3 weeks back?
In kind of my initial code roast thing.
Exactly. Just the way that you structure your scriptable objects and
Right.
yeah, no, I think it makes a ton of sense the way you're showing
Yeah.
it. So
I remember when you showed what was it, your damage projectile system. It was like half a year ago or something,
Yeah.
or maybe more, and it was like a response to how I solved part of my thing with just read instructions. And I remember like it was very clear to me, like they're very like perpendicular, or no, well, not even perpendicular. They're very much like, if you go into the way that I did it, then you have these benefits. If you go into the way you did it, then you have these benefits. And it's like you can't really marry them, the benefits. Like if you want the modularity of it and like the ease of use that you had, then you need to do it, and you need to bite the bullet and do that component lookup, or whatever it needs to be to
Right. Yeah.
do and if you do it like very tightly packed to squeeze all the performance out of it, then it becomes a little bit more of a obtuse thing to deal with in the if you want to do very varied and just random gameplay ideas, then that might not
Right.
be the
Yeah.
right
Because
solution.
if I want to say add a bunch more of these conditions, then now I have to like add extra fields to
Yeah.
the, struct in that array for all those conditions.
Yeah, it's like a factory that makes super cheap cars versus like Rolls-Royce, who makes like one car every other day, who has like
Right.
one of them is optimized to make this specifically with like custom stitching, and the other one is just made to
Yeah,
just
it's like,
spit
all
out the
right, we'll
fastest thing
take,
ever.
tail light from here off the shelf, put it on this car, and this car. Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's good to have those like sort of analogies, or think about it like clear cut, like what's the actual benefit here, and where do I lose out, and because there's always something you lose out on.
Right. I guess what would be kind of like the practical way of referencing that array from kind of the initial character entity? Like, is that something that you would ideally want to store in like a dynamic buffer that has like a realistic like chunk size where like most of that data could kind of fit in there? Is that kind of
Well,
like the
it
approach
depends
that you
on
take?
if the amount of element in them is going to vary a lot. Then you sort of get sort of forced into the
Right.
dynamic
So you're
list.
kind
And
of
then
either
the thing I'm talking about is just not the best idea. But if you have like, there's going to be like 3 or 4 modification at the maximum, then you can just do a fixed list and just deal with it on the in chunk pre-allocated. And I think pre-allocated, if you can just if you have the ability to set a max, that simplifies a ton of different things. And but sometimes you can't set a max amount of modifications, because like, no, we don't know what the player is going to make, and the designer has like a billion ideas
to have like their own different builds and everything. And
So but imagine like, oh, there, imagine something where you have like 16 different modifiers, and all the modifiers can be combined into different ways, and there's hundreds of thousands of combination of that makes different gameplay options. You still only dealing with 16 objects, so you can just pre-allocate 16 slots on all the objects if you don't have too many objects. And then you don't like we don't need to link out to anything dynamic. We just have this fixed thing for all of our entities that uses this entity stat system.
right.
But if you don't know that you have just this 16, then it's harder.
I guess, Danny, on that, do you know if if there is any kind of significant performance difference between using like a fixed array inside of a chunk versus like a dynamic buffer inside of a chunk?
So there is slightly, depending on whether you're using the internal buffer capacity attribute.
Right.
Because basically it's the way that the fixed array is going to work is always it's going to put that fixed amount of bytes into the chunk,
Right.
and then that's the size, and that's very similar to what the internal buffer capacity is doing. So if you specify the internal capacity as the same number of elements as there would be bytes in the fixed,
Right.
then it would be exactly the same. Now,
Wow.
the difference obviously being that if you then exceed that dynamic buffer size, then it will store it on the heap instead. And then
Right.
the
And it
buffer
stores everything. It's not just the extra.
exactly. And the way that it's stored is there's a buffer head, and that buffer head then points to where it actually needs to be. So normally that would either be inside the chunk that the rest of the information of the buffer is, or in the case of you exceeding that size, it goes outside. It's sort of similar to how we store managed components.
Yeah. That may As soon as you were like, what's the difference? I'm like, that's like, in doing that with a dynamic buffer with internal capacity is like basically the same thing. I guess it's maybe syntax wise it can be a little bit more smoother in some cases with the one.
With
I'm not
using
sure.
dynamic buffer, you mean? Or a fixed array?
No, I don't know.
It's what's it called? I feel like dynamic buffer adds more flexibility, but it's nicer to start with just a fixed array, because at the very least initially, oh, I'm not going to use that many things, so I'm just going to do a thing that works, and then at some point.
And this is possibly like in a very few situations where this is relevant, but copy the fixed buffer I guess is also like a very clean cut thing. Like, it's just a value. You just copy the value, and then the whole array comes with it. Like,
Yes.
you can obviously copy a dynamic buffer too, but it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like copying a dynamic buffer is definitely, you have to both copy the head, which is in the chunk, as well as where that head is pointing to. Memory now needs to be copied over.
Oh no, my 32-thread CPU needs to copy 2 things and not 1.
Yeah.
To quote Jonathan Blow, it's unethical to write bad code.
Yeah, and he also would argue that having one extra, however many bite-sized thing to copy is going to be absolutely negligible in performance for any modern system.
Yeah. I mean, there's trade-offs and gray areas everywhere here, but yeah. But to otherwise to like the last thing that I is hard to critique, just a conceptual like.
Yeah, we can dive into the code a little
Yeah,
bit more
but
after
just to
this.
add, like the ordering, I think making the ordering of it to be like as explicit as possible from all perspective of working with it, debugging it, adding new features, just like coding gameplay towards it, or all of this. Like, how do you specify ordering of all this? That's manipulation going on, and making sure that it's like easy to figure out exactly why a value is weird. I think that's possibly one of the most important parts, because that gets like super intricate if you have complex gameplay logic going on with a lot of modifiers on top of modifiers on top of other stuff.
So just kind of like making sure that your modifiers are kind of changing the values at like a appropriate part in the frame, where
have like
you're not like modifying things like halfway through where you're like using one value before and after you're changing them.
But also, if you like stack a bunch of modifiers on each other's at the same time, if you have temporary modifiers, then you like if you have something that's a multiplier and the other one is an addition and the other one is like a something.
Well, I don't know. So at least for the design of like this particular game, the solution that I have for that is like each modifier type, it's only going to be one of these 4 different types. Like it's only going to be a multiplication, it's only going to be an addition. Like there's no case where I would have like some specific type be, I want this to apply as a multiplication, but this to apply as an addition.
Okay. Well, maybe looking at the code, it will be more clear, because for me, it's like temporary modification or stats modification, at least in my mind, is like something where it just inherently becomes a stacked problem where like if you have a shield that's shielding you from 20% of the damage, what does that mean compared to like a damage debuff, a damage amplify debuff, and which is in what order?
Right.
And like,
yeah. So you're saying, if you have like maybe some armor that gives you like plus 10 defense points, and then you also have a shield that gives you 10% defense points.
Yeah, and
like
then
how
you have
do you,
some
like when do you apply the additions and multiplications?
Yeah, because if it's basic math, but the order of them is
right.
Obviously
it makes a complete difference if you're applying the 10% before the addition or after the addition.
Yeah. So that's just something that we had to deal with a lot with Batterite.
Right. So I guess in that sense, you would kind of have to like figure out all the stat modifications and then order them, and then at the end you can kind of do that final math problem.
There were like at least like 20 categories of things that could modify everything, because when you're making a very complex like RPG-ish game, you just have so many items and spells and different types of things that's going on, and like, and then the designer comes up with this thing and it's totally unique and it needs its own little slot in
the designer. It's always the designer.
Yeah. All right, I'm curious about the code. Show it.
Yeah. Let's get into it here. So I guess where should we start with this? Well, here, I'll just go to the character authoring. So this is kind of the big struct that I have here with like all the different types of stat modifications. So, we have like a move speed modifier. So this is like a float. So basically, each character has their own base move speed, and then we multiply it by this modifier to get kind of the effective move speed, essentially. You can see things like this integer where we have like additional hit points. Damage received is an integer, like it literally just says like, subtract 1 off of the incoming damage and then apply that final hit points. So yeah, again, have 12 of these. And then I have kind of some like helper methods, which we can kind of get into here, but Yes. So this might be another kind of like design type thing as far as like, putting some of the stuff inside components. So like this is like a constructor where, it just kind of can set the default values here. So I think that's pretty standard. This add stat though, this one's doing stuff a little bit more complex where we can say, pass in the stat modifier, and then it looks at, what type it is. It kind of adds that to its current value and then clamps it. Is that kind of, I guess, a fine approach to have this like inside of the component like this? Even this is kind of doing a little bit of functionality, but ultimately it's just kind of like assigning values. Does that kind of make sense?
I think so. Wait, damage where does damage modifier comes from? I mean, that was just a float.
I would assume it's part of the struct.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just missed that.
Yeah.
And then inside of the clamp, that's just a simple clamp.
Yeah, and then if we go into here, we can kind of see what's happening here. So yeah, basically I have scriptable objects to define things about all the stats. So that's how like when you like hit escape, you can see all your current stats, and it has like an icon for them. It has the name of the stat and like the current value.
Wait, so this means it's not burstable?
So it is because I'm storing actually that. No, this is not burstable. Yeah, I guess I'm not storing it in any type
the stat modifier controller that instance would make it.
Right. Yeah. This is
well, it doesn't have to be not burstable just because it's using a static, but in most cases that is the effect.
Wait, what? What static magic are you talking about?
Read-only statics are fully allowed, including something called a shared static, which you can freely use inside of Burst. And that will essentially work like a normal static variable.
Okay. Yeah, I know about the shared static, but I never used it, and I thought it would. I don't know. Okay, you know what? I'm remembering. Yeah, I've seen the example code for it. It's not that weird.
So a shared static is totally fine.
Yeah,
and that is just because it's a way for you to use a read-only static in a way that you can still write to it.
Yeah. But Johnny, I would say at this point the only roasting I would say is like you got to make it burstable, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking that I'm like, yeah, I probably should like store these values in instead of like doing some kind of lookup thing here, just like have some burstable way that I can kind of reference the minimum and maximum values for a given type.
Yeah, I would say like just like when you go down that path of like trying to make stuff burstable, it sometimes you just keep finding stupid managed shit deeper and deeper down. But then like if you eventually come up from that rabbit hole and like, okay, I can burst it. I think like that's one of those like core things, the same as like how far can I push away the command buffer? Like I keep going down in rabbit hole and like refactoring out and putting stuff into queues or lists or whatever to get rid of command buffers. I think those two rabbit holes are like equally satisfying and annoying and important.
Yes, that is certainly true.
So that might be, I guess, depending on, I'll have to really stress test this to see if it actually shows up in the profiler, but otherwise it probably would be like a post-launch optimization for this kind of thing. But
I mean, this is all about like start. I think single-threaded is something you should like have from the get-go. Like, who cares about multiplayer and when it's like trivial gameplay code? But from my perspective, like I always start in burst land, and I like if I get thoroughly evicted, then okay, I accept my non-bursted situation here. But otherwise, I will go hard.
To take that approach. Now I've kind of mostly been doing the more single-threaded non-burst approach. It's just kind of been faster to develop things that way. So
at least you have the opportunity, you have the headroom for eventually getting all the
I feel like I'm normally somewhere in between where I will try to keep it bursted, and the place where I'm like, okay, now I need something quick and dirty, then I'm gonna try to just put it in one location and only that location, and then I can always do the non. Then I only have the non-bursted place in one location, right? So I can still go back and fix it at some point. But I'm not gonna be lazy.
Yeah, true. I
Totally.
sometimes when I have that code, it's that kind of code, like I just get it done, but I need to do it in a better way if we end up using it. Sometimes I'm like intentionally coding it with ugly looking code, so I'm like, I can't stand looking at it in the long run, so I have to fix it.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, and on this, if you're asking about my project and performance issues, I haven't really done much deep profiling on it. But I just, as I showed earlier, got it running on Steam Deck, and it was locked 60 throughout all the gameplay. So
I can imagine.
Very happy with that.
Yeah, and like to be sure, like if you don't have any as a general statement, you shouldn't go ham on optimizing everything.
Right. Yeah.
Much
better to
especially
ship
if
the
it's
game
something like
and
the
do all
Steam
this
Deck.
Yeah. But I'm just like I'm so in love with the non-managed code for more reasons than burst that I'm like I just got to do it.
Yeah.
No,
again, most of the stuff that I'm doing is non-managed, of course. So like if I mean I'm doing things with like burst kind of in mind, where it's like I know that if I want to kind of make this multi-threaded or bursted, like it'll be really easy to do that. Like I just kind of need to write the extra couple lines of code to make that happen. But so anyways, that's basically what's going on as far as that is. And also have a way to get the current value where we can just like pass in the type, and then it just kind of returns the actual value for that there.
Yeah.
So a couple little helpers in there.
Have you thought about doing a actually? Oh, I just had a nice idea. You could do explicit layout of the original struct, and then do a fixed list, and then you have a direct index into.
Oh, okay.
With the enum.
Like the enum value.
Yes, but if you do like field offset in the beginning, so
the only thing is I do have a none value, so I would have to kind of like I guess subtract it.
Yeah, but you can just add like 4 bytes to the
subtract, right?
No, to the field offset.
Oh, yeah.
You can just add like push it
ahead. Yeah,
push the fixed list one step forward in the so it doesn't consume.
Now we're getting into like really deep unnecessary modifications at this point.
This is tasty syntax sugar.
I love it. But yeah, and as far as my refactor goes, by the way, and I think Danny, we might have scrolled past this in a video that I was kind of showcasing some things in this project on at one point, but all these individual fields, these were in 12 separate components at one time.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. We were talking. I'm pretty sure we were talking about like union approach versus.
Yeah. So I think like on Monday of this week, these were 12 separate components, and I'm like, okay, this is a complete mess. And I did actually have, we kind of referenced that like chain of like the character references all these different entities. I had another intermediary entity where it's like the character references this kind of like stat modifier entity, and then that now has the dynamic buffer of all these other ones. And then I was reading through the code, I'm like, there's no point in having this other entity. I can just have all this on the main character.
Classic.
Yeah, because I was originally like figuring out some things to do where like to like offload a bunch of my data like onto a second entity, but then like as things evolved, like there was nothing really on that like intermediary entity. So I'm like, okay, there's no point in having this. So rip that out.
No code is better code.
Oh yeah,
less code is better code.
And actually, this authoring component fits actually on one zoomed in screen right here, which is like this definitely would not have happened with all the 12 other components. And I was also creating that additional entity, adding a dynamic buffer to that, adding things that way. And it was a big mess.
Nice.
It's good. It's very cathartic when you get to delete a lot of code.
Yes.
And Danny, your video is kind of frozen right now. Oh, I think you're back.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it felt good getting rid of all that code. So I can show this is kind of the character initialization system. And I guess this kind of ends up doing the same sort of thing as like so I guess this is kind of like applying some stat modifiers to begin with. So I kind of have like a struct that's a very similar layout to the character's current stats, but it basically just holds like all the default values. Because like some of the defaults are 0 for like the ones where we're like adding an integer, and other ones where we're like multiplying things, the default is 1 because we want to like multiply by 1 to like get the same value kind of thing. So I basically just have like a singleton where I'm like storing kind of some of those defaults. And then that's kind of the constructor that I had there, is where I can pass in those default values and it sets the current stats to all the defaults. And then again, this is just kind of the initialization. So if any character has any stat modifiers to begin with, it's going to add them just through that like add stat component, and which again just sets this current stat modifications. And of course, we just assign it for the character's stats there. And then so that's going to be a pretty similar thing to the recalculate stats system here, where again, this time instead of just like getting the data from kind of like our initial one, we now just kind of like loop through all of our stat modifier entities, and then on each of the stat modifier entities we have the current stats, and then just kind of add them that way. And yeah, so I mean that's kind of basically what's happening there. Does that mostly make sense?
I think so.
Cool. And yeah, this is kind of a little actually interesting trick that I had to do to kind of remove elements from the dynamic buffer. Is we just kind of because one thing that I noticed is like the when a temporary stat modifier got destroyed, like it doesn't clean itself up from that dynamic buffer. So I have to like check if it exists. If it doesn't exist, we'll add that index to remove to this indices to remove list. And then from here, I do a reverse for loop going through the indices to remove. So basically starts at like the highest index, and then I can do a remove at swap back to, remove that element without messing with other ones that we're going to be removing.
Can't you do the reverse remove in the original loop?
I think what ends up happening is, you mean instead of doing a remove at swap back, just do a remove at? Is that what you mean?
No. If you go up where you have where you add to the remove list.
Yeah.
If you do remove it actually there on line 319, but you do that loop in reverse instead.
Oh, so yeah, just start at the last stat modifier. Yeah, I could totally do that.
Yeah,
be a little code clean up there.
I write that type of code daily with the reverse loop because
it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
That's and it's super annoying that Visual Studio forgets how to do a reverse loop automatic fill in sometimes, and I have to write it out by hand. I'm like, we live in the 2020s. I shouldn't have to write this stupid loop by myself. So that was just something I saw, because like removing stuff otherwise can be a little bit the first time you go into that problem of like, oh, I need to remove based on indices, but they are changing every time I remove. The first time you're just staring at your computer for like half an hour, like, what the hell do I do? And then like, oh, I just do it backwards.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess I didn't even think of that, or just move that loop there. And actually, I think that would be a nice code cleanup, because then it gets removed, this native list, and I don't have to like add to that and everything. So
yeah,
but yeah, small little optimization, but I'll probably do that just for the code cleanup
Yeah.
and simplicity purposes.
And this is like exactly, this is a perfect example of like the removed memory footprint or computation is like, that's just irrelevant.
Right.
It's just less
Yeah.
code to look at. That's
Yeah,
better.
and again, the point of this project is I'm going to be sharing this code, you know,
Yeah.
publicly through the asset store. Like people are going to be reading through this, and it's like, you know, that's just a lot of complexity to, you know, just have this like extra list, and you know, I'm maintaining this list now, and
And you can like even copy your comment from 334 and put
I
it.
can literally just take that there. Boom. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, this is as far as you know, setting the current like stats and everything. So yeah, we just kind of recalculate the stats, and then when we want to go use them, I know the character move system should be in here as well. So you know, the character has its own base move speed here, and then which is just this character move speed, and then we also just have the character current stats. So then when we want to actually calculate the movements, you know, we can look at the move direction, multiply that by the move speed, multiply that by our modifier, the move speed modifier, and multiply that by delta time. So yeah,
good stuff. Oh, I miss the position.xz or position. Whatever combination.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Unity mathematics?
I miss that so much in normal vector.
I know. I had to do some like UI code where I was like doing stuff with vector threes, and I was like, oh, it'd be so nice if I could just do a .xz here.
I feel like we should just get rid of vector 2 at this point, vector 2 and 3, and then like have some tool that will help you convert the one to the next, because there is like for the most part always a direct correlation between the two here. Like it's we didn't reinvent sinus or products or something.
And I gotta say also, like the worst thing with it is that there's a vector 3 int. Why? Like, that long
what do you mean?
word.
We have int 3. So
yeah,
exactly. That's what he's saying. He's
I
like,
want
why
the
is it
int
this
3, not
ridiculous
the
vector 3 int?
Like what?
Just call it int 3. Boom. Be done with it.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm trying to think, is there anything else that you guys still want to see regarded to this stat modifications? Anything that I might have missed? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that can be kind of related to this to show off that'd be kind of interesting. Like, I suppose I could show off kind of like how I'm like setting some of the values within the editor and all that. So basically, I have this in the resources folder, so like things can kind of load basically at runtime. So I have all the different, again, these 12 different ones. So here's where we're kind of like setting the modifier type, where the actual stat type to be modified here. The value type is like, is this a percentage, integer, whatever. Of course, the title is like kind of the friendly title that we can show in the UI. Same with the icon. And then here's where we have the minimum and maximum modification values, which is what I'm using to basically clamp the values there. So we have that. And then I believe it is on this stat modifier controller, where we just on awake, we just load stat modifications. So we can do a resources.load all on that folder. And then from here, I'm actually just populating a dictionary where I'm keying off of the stat modifier type. And that's how I can, look up all the actual properties here. And then the default value is by the default modification type. So again, if it's a percentage, it's 1. Otherwise, it's 0. I'm just kind of explicitly stating those all though there. And then, so here's where we can actually like basically set the default values on this, which again is that struct that I was mentioning, that this is kind of the default struct, which basically has the same layout as the character's current one. And then we just have like a a little helper function here for setting default values of a specific modifier type.
Do you need to set all of them at the same time a lot?
No, it's just kind of like a convenience thing to just kind of clean up some of this kind of initialization loading code.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is was because of if you have a lot of situation where you have to set all of them, then having able to like have these two structs be like, even they are different types, they have exact same layout, just different values.
Right.
That would be
right.
something
Yeah.
to optimize, so it's just one memory memory operation that could be done with the.
That's a good point. Yeah, because that's what in the, if we go to the original one, you'll see that I have like the constructor, and then I'm like setting each value like this. But whereas that actually could be another good optimization. Where
it's also like just
right
a clean thing if you can do, because obviously the language itself can just copy an arbitrary amount of bytes from one side to another side.
Right.
So you don't have to write it all out.
What is the actual like method for doing that?
I would do it with the one I suggested, with the having
just the basically the array.
The array, exactly. So you have like just the same memory through an array view. It's like literal memory aliasing, I think, if you technically think about it. But there's the same memory is mapped in two different ways through the language, both by individual variables and by a big array.
Right. Yeah. Because I guess this constructor gets called every time a new enemy gets spawned, so it is happening, fairly frequently.
Yeah. You could set up something to dummy spawn 10,000 enemies, or maybe that's the amount you actually have, and I
could do that right now pretty easily if I wanted to. So
you should see if that makes a difference. I wouldn't guess it makes a ton of difference, but maybe a tiny bit, and also you would get rid of a bunch of code.
Yeah.
But just an idea.
I dig it. And then just kind of assigning that component data on there, and
it's I just got to point out, like, the reason why I thought about that was because I just saw this big switch case in operation with all of this, and a lot of times that's the right thing. You just do the things that needs to be done, and that's it.
Yeah.
But since it was
a little bit of typing, but
but since this is like a repeating pattern exactly, then maybe there's a way to collapse this, because that's the only reason why it just stuck to me. This is a repeating pattern. Maybe there's a way to get rid of it. Yeah. All right. But otherwise, nice.
Yeah. And then I guess just real quick, I can showcase for, where is it? For all the characters here. So we have Danny's little character in our game here. Here's how you can apply some kind of default stat overrides. I just kind of have this available in the scriptable object, so we can just kind of add different elements here. And then again, that's kind of what gets initially loaded when we spawn the character for the first time. So that's kind of how that looks. All right. Well, any other questions or any other random, even related or unrelated things that either of you guys want to see in this project at all?
No, my brain is a little bit slow on the evening.
I guess it's getting a little late for you guys anyway. So
yeah, no,
it's the 14th now.
It is the 14th for you guys.
Yes.
Look at that.
True.
Getting real close to Christmas time here.
Yes.
All right. Well, we can kind of start wrapping things up. I don't know if you guys have any dynamic allocation fun things you want to share with the community at all here today.
I actually have one.
Oh, I had something. What was it?
There we go. Let me expertly share my whole screen. There we go. What's it called? One of my colleagues is currently doing her studies, and she's doing something called Daddio, which is like a Danish game study. It's sort of like I don't know the game assembly in Sweden. Anyways, it's like a study, and it's really cool. But one of the things that I want to show, because they just did their graduation projects, they basically make up tiny little studios that in the span of like one semester have to make a game together. And usually it's like a 1 week project, a 2 week project, and then like a 12-week, 9-week or something project. And like this is the game that my colleague made. But this game here is kind of interesting because
Death to the Universe, Act 1.
Exactly.
Fueled by cookies.
It's really fucking cool. Like it's just a platformer with a grappling hook.
That looks
The art style
awesome.
it looks really good for something that was only done in like 9 weeks by some students.
Wow.
Damn, that's good.
And someone on Twitter noticed a guy called Kevin Miller. And in case you guys don't know who Kevin Miller is, he's the voice actor for my favorite game of all time. Sly. He is Sly. Well, he's the voice actor behind Sly.
Oh,
and
wow.
they actually got him to voice act in this game.
No way.
Which is really cool. So I'm just gonna quickly open up the game here.
Yeah.
fueled by cookies.
Also, for some reason, my mouse is in the middle of the recording screen. That's annoying. I can't physically see it on my screen.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, right.
Is the audio coming through?
No, I think you have to, when you share your screen, you have to like do the enable.
Yes, let's quickly
Audio.
do a represent here. Share entire. Oh yeah, there we go. That's the button.
That's the button.
There you go. The good thing here is that they made all the audio, so it should be fine copyright-wise.
All right, we hear it now.
Yes.
I am the universe. I am all. I know all.
And I mean, for a student game, this is pretty well made, I feel
Not
like.
everything is about you.
Oh, death. Such a funny little concept you are. Trash collector, vigilante, self-made millionaire.
Death is a mask I wear. A job I do. Some
Dang.
people asked me if I
It's wild.
had to read the soul before I had a chance. to
So,
answer.
to anyone that has played Sly,
Humans
this
always
is
try
his
to
voice.
understand what
Yeah.
but to be honest, I've never really given it much thought.
This looks so cool.
Crash out without looking in the bag.
But my dear death, leave a little trash behind for me to play with.
I don't get why you're so interested in the last two souls.
Also, just the
But to
character
put it
design.
bluntly, the
I
death
know. Because, yeah, this is all custom, I'm assuming. So,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like 12 people in their group.
Ha!
I don't get why you're so obsessed with your new job.
You wouldn't understand.
All I know is you're not getting paid.
Duh.
And also, like, the music is so fitting with the game.
and you said
Yeah.
they created all the music for it and everything, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You can see on the. I don't like the menu.
Yeah.
Menu is a little sad. You can
Could be a little
see
better, but
composer, sound designer.
wow.
That's the entire list of people who made it. And Sune is a person that also made a game called Glide the Dragon.
Looks
Oh my god, can I?
very old school platformy. I like it.
It's giving very sly no what's it called Spyro vibes.
Yeah.
It's very much Spyro in the.
No, absolutely.
And so apparently Sune knew or Kevin Miller knew about Sune through Twitter and wanted to help out the student project, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. You get like a famous voice actor to work on your student project.
Yep. Which is pretty damn impressive. Also, like, this looks amazing.
Sign a contract. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the effects for the little swirl attack, that looks so cool. It's very like stylized and cartoony.
Nice.
Is that like
Also,
a spine?
That sound effect there,
What about it?
it's great. Like
It's very satisfying.
it's very satisfying. Oh my god.
I'm sorry it's a bit messy in here, but I'm sure it's not a problem for the big man.
But anyways, that is my dynamic indication. I think you guys should try and play it. It's
What's the name of the game
little-
again?
it's called Death to the Universe Act 1.
Death to the Universe. Good, yeah,
Gonna-
drop
Wonder
that.
what universe
drop
they're
that in
gonna kill next after the first one is dead in Act 2.
Death to the Multiverse.
Yes. And I will also link all the other games here. It's a pretty fun program. I think I would have done Daddy-O if it wasn't because I am no longer studying. But if I was studying, I would do it. You only get to do it if you're studying.
Makes sense. All right, Tobias, you got anything for us here today?
I'm sorry, I couldn't find what I was looking for. And,
You do.
yeah, I'm getting tired. So my brain just can't come up with what I was thinking about. Yeah.
I saw this comments from ITR of how many entities do your archetypes fit. I was trying to find see if I could find the enemy entities, but the archetypes window sucks to look through. It's like when I'm just trying to find this one thing. I have 97 archetypes, so I'm trying to find like the one, and there isn't really like a way you can filter it by components unless
I
doing
miss
what I'm doing.
the entity debug view.
there were some nice things about that for sure. It's just nice that it was all kind of through one thing.
Exactly. It was like a very purpose-built tool.
And this wait,
Oh.
if I'm on an entity, can I get to the archetype?
I think you can, like on the right corner, like
Oh, here, I guess I'll just share my screen here then. So if I go to like enemy tag, I can go to say this guy and go. It's a
relationships,
prefab.
maybe.
So yeah, these are just systems. We have
But can you go
aspects.
from a system to an because the systems contain
Oh,
queries,
okay.
and the queries contain archetypes, I think.
Let's find one with. Yeah, this just gives me this.
Oh, it also gives you all the entities of that archetype.
Right.
This is such a bad experience.
I know.
Can you filter? Because I think you can filter
So
for the
there is
specific
the
entity.
filter, but it's like, oh, do you want to filter by component type count? Filter by entity count? No.
This is so not useful. Oh my god.
Base hit points, enemy tag. Here we go. Oh, this is the prefab though. Well, it'll probably be similar. Chunk capacity 37. It's not a lot.
Yep.
That's not a lot.
But
37.
This one.
128 is the maximum with the enable disable, right?
correct. Yeah.
Oh.
Here's another enemy tag one. 32. Wait. Yeah, 32 chunk capacity. Yikes. Well, runs fine on Steam Deck, so
I think it will be fine.
Not complaining too hard there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then let me pull this up here. So yeah, I wanted to share this guy, Louis Rossmann. I think I've brought him up before, but he kind of like is a guy on YouTube. He started like doing kind of like motherboard repair type videos, and kind of like over time got more into the whole like right to repair type stuff.
Yeah, that's
and,
where I know him from, is right to repair.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
yeah. And then more lately, it's just kind of been more just like general. He starts off every show by saying like, "Hey, I'm Louis Rossmann. Welcome to another episode of How You're Getting Effed." And basically, it's just like all his videos are about like companies doing like very scummy type things of, you know, how they misuse your data or lock you into bad things with some, you know, terms of service that you're not going to read. So anyways, he created, it's actually a 2-video series, which is a total of 13 hours of content here, where it's called Futo's Guide to a Self-Managed Life. And there's actually a full written guide to it as well, where, as you can see, it's a very, very long web page here. I mean, it's not even loading for me right now for the most part. But anyways, the video is basically going through the full guide, and it's all about kind of like setting up your own like router and other software on like your computer, to just kind of like avoid all the kind of like corporate nonsense. So there's like you know, it kind of goes into like, you know, using some replacements for like Google Photos and you know, Google Docs and stuff, so you're not like, you know, everything you create in there is not like being sent to Google for analysis and all that. And it's kind of like, you know, you're a lot more in control over this stuff because you're, you know, creating you know, you're using a bunch of like open source software, and he also gives a bunch of like hardware recommendations for like really commonly available hardware that you can buy for like super cheap used off eBay or something like that, that still, you know, works really well. And again, you're not like signing your life away to some of these companies. Like he kind of shows also in here, there's like a surveillance camera type replacement. So instead of having like, you know, a Ring doorbell where like, you know, every time you walk in front of your Ring doorbell, like your video is getting sent up to Ring's cloud servers. Well, you know, he shows like, you know, a open source way where you can kind of set up your own camera system that's like, you know, fully managed by you. The server is running in your house, and you can still, you know, receive notifications on the phone when, you know, somebody walks by your camera. But again, it's kind of all fully hosted and managed by you. So yeah, would just recommend, you know, checking this out. Here's a link to this video here, and it has a link to this guide written in here as well. So just a lot of good stuff if people are kind of interested in that. And you know, he did he kind of made it like really easy to follow along, like, you know, depending on your level of technical expertise here. So yeah, just cool stuff. Would recommend it, absolutely. Yeah, Danny, we got a black cat spotted on Friday the 13th here today. We see.
Oh yeah, it's well, it's not Friday anymore
not
here.
for you
so,
guys.
The saving grace.
Indeed.
That must be why she sat here for most of the show. Like
Exactly,
she was
she
right
knew.
there.
All right. Well, so with that, we can go ahead and wrap up our final show of the Hot Path Show here today. It's been a fun year of episodes on the Hot Path Show. And hope you guys all have a great holiday season and enjoy yourselves. And we'll be back at some time eventually.
Yes.
Real quick, do just want to thank our Patreon supporters, especially the ones at the CPU register tier, which is our highest tier. So thank you very much to eCool for your support over there. And don't forget you can support us on Patreon and through YouTube memberships for some fun bonus videos and all that. So with that, Tobias, you got any parting words for us? Words of wisdom for the people? Use fixed arrays.
Yes. Use use fixed arrays. That's a good one. I like them.
All right. So Danny, thanks for joining us here. What you got for the people here today?
Well,
Don't use
stay on the
command
hot
bar.
path.
Well said. All right. With
Stay on the
that-
hot path and keep using ECS sometimes.
Keep using ECS if you're a big uncoordinated team, like apparently myself and Tobias both are. So thanks for insulting us in this wonderful.
No, I
holiday season
insulted
here.
everyone here. That's,
you pretty much insulted all my viewers here, so thank you for that.
well, I did also say that if you're using Unity, then you're already technically working with an uncoordinated team between yourself and Unity.
I think that's a good point. And
counts.
also as you're saying that, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm like getting art created by other people, and it's like, they're just kind of making it with, all right, later, see ya. If you didn't like what I had to say.
Oh, that was bad timing.
Anyways, let's end the stream before he comes back.
There
he is. All right. Guess you didn't like what I had to say.
What were you about to say?
No, I was just saying, like, as you were saying that, if you're using Unity, that's kind of like you're almost a big uncoordinated team there, and it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm getting art commissioned, and they're kind of like adhering to their own standards, and I have to import that into the project, and then other people, they might be using like assets, and like they're kind of using whatever standards, and they have to like modify all that to fit within whatever framework. So I guess that could be kind of considered a more uncoordinated team.
I think that's a fair point.
With that, go enjoy your weekend of being an uncoordinated team in the Unity game engine.
All right.
Take care,
Stay on the
everybody.
hot path.
We'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.